mic check, please.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jennings.
I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brazier.
My name is John Gordon. I'll be your host.
And I'm your host, Katie Burke.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. We bring the resource to you, the DU Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, John Gordon, and joining me today is the owner of Castile Creek Kennels in Gower, Missouri, and a senior member of the SportDOG Prostaff, and one of the top professional retriever trainers in the country. It's Lyle Steinman. Welcome to the podcast, Lyle.
Well, thank you for having us on this beautiful morning.
I wanted to start out talking about a little bit about your history, how you get started as a professional trainer, and what it is about retrievers that you really love working with those dogs and competing in the retriever games. How'd you really get started?
Oh, well, it started way back in high school, and I love dogs, and I had a gentleman, one of my classmates' neighbor's grandfather. I said, hey, can you teach me how to trap coons? He goes, absolutely. So I started trapping raccoons in the winter, and that got boring. And because he was good at it, and he taught me, and I'd catch them every time. So I go, I think I want to try that coonhound deal. So I started with coonhound. I went to coonhound dogs. And then my wife, Stephanie, in high school, were childhood sweethearts, and she would come up and go coon hunt with me. So we'd coon hunt in my high school days and run night hunts and things like that. And it still gives me goosebumps thinking about chasing them hounds, at night and the adrenaline rush of treeing coons. And it was phenomenal, to say the least. And then decided I needed a little more action and went into bird dogs, and then went to horseback bird dogs. Well, I don't like horses. Okay. And I found that out real quick that you got to ride a horse to chase these bird dogs. Well, I was out on that gig. And then I bought my first puppy for $150. It'd been in 1986 from one of my mentors, the late Leland Sonny Ellison. And that's what caused that problem. And so Sonny would take me and coach me and teach me. And I had a black lab male named Doc, and he could run any blind that you want to set up, but he couldn't find a snow goose in the bed of your truck. Okay. He couldn't mark. And I figured out real quick, I didn't have enough horsepower. So I found him a good guy that wanted to hunt all the time, and they went to go hunt. And then I went to a dog named Blitz, and I'm still an amateur at this time. And went to call Bill Eckett, the late Bill Eckett, and he had a client that had a dog named Blitz for sale. His name was Blitzen, and there were 8 puppies born on Christmas Day, and you had to name them after a reindeer. So that was kind of unique. And so I started with Blitz in the late 80s, early 90s, and ran my first Master National and discovered I did not have enough horsepower. I said, uh-oh. So I went back to training. And as an amateur, I wanted to assemble 8 to 10 dogs that were the best of the best. And I got to 8. And I mean, they were powerful master dogs. And I was taught by field trialers. Sonny was a field trialer, and so was Mr. Eckett. So my concepts and teachings are all from field trial background. So I would set up field trial marks, and I kept pushing these dogs, and they were doing very well on the weekend, the master tests. And I had a gentleman out of Iowa that I seen him in October at the National Derby Championship, and I told him, you're the reason I'm here, because you made me take your dog to a hunt test. And I took your money, and that should have never done that. So we laughed about that. And then it just kind of rolled on from there. And I had great teachers. I surrounded myself with the talent. And it was no different. We were talking about Jimmy Johnson. It's one of the greatest evaluators of football talent there's ever been. And I guess that was my gift of finding that dog that fit my program. May not be the best dog, but the best dog that fit that program. And so I kept assembling dogs or or finding dogs. And at that time I was working young dogs, puppies, but I didn't have that many. I was still an amateur, and I owned a company in Kansas City and could go do that and then go train in the afternoons. And then in 2002, late 2002, I decided to turn pro. Everybody thinks I've been around forever, but I haven't really trained professionally till then. And so I started running master tests, and I'd run 15 to 20 some master tests a year, getting ready for the Master National and things like that. And so after doing that, and I think I ran my first Super Retriever Series event in 2006 with River, and we qualified, and we really didn't know what we had done. Okay. But shortly after that, we ran the Crown in 2007, and I won it with River. And that was the time that SportDOG approached me, was in the fall of 2007, with Kevin Lee. And so Kevin Lee and I became friends, and I was using another product at that time. And Kevin Lee goes, "I don't care." But when that come about, I said, absolutely. So it's amazing. I was talking to Gretchen the other day about how long I've had 3 sponsors, and SportDOG in 2007 and Country Vet in 2006. And then shortly after that, Zoom Dog Supplements. So that's kind of a longevity of that. But down the road, we've won 7 Crown Championships and over 3,500 master passes, which is ridiculous, to be honest with you. Nobody should have that many. But at that time, you had to requalify every year. So you had to run a lot of events to get the dogs qualified. And so it's now at, 58, going to be 59 next June. And I know where I'm at in my career. And I brought on Clark Kennington to run the Grand and the Super Retriever Series. And then Lewis West is a young talent that's extremely gifted with young dogs. And I'm kind of preparing these guys for the future from what I built. And it's been a slow process, I guess you'd say, of buying property and developing ponds and kennels and things like that. So it's kind of been a long process, but it seems like it's went very fast.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said, most people probably think you've been in the game for 30 years at least, I would think. And it's kind of interesting that doing a little research on it, SportDOG brand, that they were formed by Radio Systems Corporation in 2003, same time that you really became a professional. So they haven't been around as long either. So it seems like the two of y'all have grown together, working with dogs. Yeah, let's talk about the SRS for just a second for people that don't know what that is. It's a Super Retriever Series, and I've been to a couple of events, been to a Crown, and I've seen these dogs perform at the very highest levels. And what I really love about the Super Retriever Series is the hybrid nature of it. It's not necessarily a hunt test, not necessarily a field trial. Expand on your success there a little bit. 7 Crown champions is unbelievable. Of why you think that your dogs and your program have done so well in the SRS?
Well, it was a competition that was basically designed. If I could go out and design a competition back then for me and my kennel, that would have been it, because I ran the master tests. I trained like a field trialer, even though I didn't run very many field trials, but I would run 3 and 4 and 5, 600-yard marks and blinds, because I just can't run 100-yard stuff every day. About makes me ill. And I would push them dogs. And what has basically happened at this kennel is you take a good master dog and you throw those concepts at him, it makes him a great master dog. So you were taking dogs that were very good, but pushing them at umpteen distances made them great. And using, Avery ATV birds is extremely difficult because it's rubber. And, you have to mark the birds with your eyes and be fairly close to them to smell them, where you could smell a bird a lot farther away. And the SRS is, I've won a lot of money playing the game, and I've won 2 dog trailers and things like that. But I was taught, I've never ran the SRS for the money. Okay. It was nice, but it was nice, the competition. And like you said, it is extremely difficult, because I've had field trial dogs in here that were very accomplished that can't do the hunt test game. And then you've got great hunt test dogs that can't go the distance, 300, 400, 500, 600 yards. You're looking for a freak is what you're looking for. You're looking for, in football terms, I'm looking for a Patrick Mahomes every day. That's what I'm looking for. And it's like I tell the boys, we have today. We have Hatch. We've got Jordan. We've got those great animals that are 7, 8 years old, but we're looking at the future with Ravi and AJ and Bob and several of these young dogs that are 2 to 3 years old for the future of building that sport. But it's just a competition that you can watch it on live streaming. Go back and watch it. The Crown Championship finished in November. You can go back and watch that, or you can Google that and YouTube it. It's all over that. But the way the dogs have progressed as far as talent is unbelievable to see. For us to ask those dogs to do that kind of work, you got to say you're nuts, and it's like watching the National Derby Championship in Sedalia at Mr. Hayden's place. These are 10 series in 5 days with babies under 2 years of age, picking up hen pheasants as the memory bird. You just shake your head going, what have we're asking things, these dogs with the development of better, equipment from SportDOG. Absolutely. The collars and that is the remote release systems and all that. I mean, the equipment has changed. The dogs have changed, and we've become better trainers.
You're talking about talent evaluation, and I think a lot of our listeners would be curious about this. Is that what are you looking for in a young dog that would tell you, okay, that dog has it, versus just a dog that really is not going to be able to run at the highest level?
Well, it starts at we've got hatch puppies that out of Scarlet that were born on Halloween, and there's 7 of those, and we're probably going to keep 2 or 3 or 4 of them. And what we'll do is each one of us will take one of those pups, okay, and raise it in the house and start doing puppy marks and introduce to pigeons and things like that. And then, at 7 weeks and 8 weeks of age, okay, we're starting to look for that development. And, we're looking for a needle in a haystack or worse than that. And our theory is we're looking for that exceptional special puppy. And once you have one of those, and you see it, you go, that's it. I got a shot. And then you go into 6 months, you start your formal training. But, you're asking a 6-month-old puppy to do 100 to 200 yard, mark in the field. And then you're developing him. I would say the first 6 months to 8 months of this puppy's life is you're hoping that gives you the sign that, hey, we're heading in the right direction. And then you get like 18 months of age. I think you're starting to see that like Ravi. We seen that when he was a young dog. Ravi was a National Derby finalist, and you see the intensity and his work ethic. Not every dog or every puppy is going to be a Crown qualifier. And that's so hard to explain to most of our listeners is we're not looking for pro ball. We're looking for all stars and all pro. And it's such a fine line in that. And with our program here is we don't need the best athlete. We just need the one that believes in the system, that is a team player, that you're not going to do it right every day, but you're going to give it everything you got effort-wise. So you're looking for that, an overachiever. I mean, I'm an overachiever. My grandfather told me, if you do your job, you will be paid. And that's the same with work ethic. We're not the best trainers here, but, the boys are already over at the Bower Farm this morning throwing marks. We don't have time to hunt. You know what I'm saying? So, and to play at that level that we're wanting to play at, it's 14 months out of the year.
Right. Yeah, I've told people that before. It's like, it'd be great to be a professional trainer. So, you think so? I said, shadow one for a week and see how much work is involved in it. And like you said, you better be willing to outwork the other guy, because everybody is out there, working and giving it their best shot. Anybody that's successful in the retriever game is out there right now. Was out there Thanksgiving morning, was out there, working on dogs. And that's the difference that I've seen between pros that are good and ones that are great. It's you were talking about work ethic, and it is a huge part of it.
Well, I called one of my old assistants this morning. It was 7:00. Okay. and he is from Kentucky, and he is a big Kentucky Wildcat fan. Okay, basketball. And of course, we're from Missouri, and we don't have a whole lot to root for a lot of times other than the Chiefs. But our basketball team is 6-0 or 7-0, and I called him and I said, I just wanted to tell you we are on a collision course for the Kentucky Wildcats. And I could hear him doing yard work. He said, can I call you tonight and we'll give each other a hard time about basketball? And I said, bud, I'm very proud of you. Go do your job. Okay. And he left us to go work for a field trialer, which is wonderful. And with us here, it's kind of like if we bring in that super athlete and we've got him, if it's a new owner and we go, hey, this animal should be playing another game, we'll tell you that. We'll never hold back an animal from playing a game that it needs to be playing. And there's dogs out there that should be playing hunt test game only. And there's dogs that should be out there playing field trial games only. But yeah, it's evaluating that talent and going, I think I got something here. And what the benefit with Clark coming and joining us in July, and Lewis is with us, is you've got 3 experienced trainers that, especially with Clark and I, there's dogs that Clark is going to be better at and with handling and training than I am. And we've already seen that already in a couple of SRS events where, I can only run 8 dogs. Well, Clark's running my second team and getting second, third, and fifth with a couple of dogs. So that's wonderful to see that. And there's dogs that Clark says, hey, this dog is more suited for you than me. And that's a benefit of having 2 trainers with a lot of experience. And Clark's won 2 crown championships. So you got the benefit of 2 guys that see dogs in a different situation. And what we've seen already together training is, I'll set up a set of marks. My dogs will do fine and Clark's can't. Clark has set up a set of marks and my guys can't do it. So we've determined that when we train together, we need a split setting up marks. And that we've already seen a benefit of that.
That's excellent.
2 perspectives.
2 perspectives. It's really that's huge. Because most guys are out there on their own. With one perspective, and the addition of another one, especially a guy like Clark Kennington, who, like you said, who's had really great success as well in the SRS, has got to be a huge feather in the cap for Castile Creek for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, shift gears for a little bit. I want to talk about Ecollars for a second, electronic collars, because we're talking about the SportDOG product and everything, and the evolution of them has been really remarkable. I started fooling around with some hunt test stuff in the early '90s, and just from what I've seen from those collars from here to there is huge. And then of course you go back into the the 1970s with the collars and. From what I understand, those days, they were really, you had to have the right dog to even be able to take the amount of pressure that you had to put on a dog with a collar that was really not very flexible. How have the e-collars really evolved, and how have they really helped you train, high-level retrievers?
Well, I think it's I was just thinking back when you're talking about that. I traded years ago an old Tritronics collar. I think it was an A170.
Yeah, that's the 70, the early collar, right?
Whew, yeah, that was
it. It was hot, wasn't it?
And oh my gosh, it was like an arc welder. And I was laughing because the guy goes, this collar probably doesn't even work. Well, it's kind of like having an old football signed by Jim Brown or Jim, all them guys. It's kind of something, what they call it, memorabilia kind of stuff. But I got it downstairs. I even know where it's at, believe it or not. But I remember my mentor showing us, and you had to change the plugs out. Mm-hmm. So it had 6 plugs in it, and a little bit not a plastic bag, but a little bag, and you'd open it up, kind of like pulling snuff out of a can. You pull your plug out and you stick the collar in. Well, you only had one setting, and then that collar would have an antenna on it. Okay, so you'd stretch that antenna up, kind of like a CB antenna. And I'm going, oh man, what have we come to today? And you're right, those dogs of then, the Rex Carr days and things like that, that took a different kind of animal to take that, nice way of putting, pressure or correction. And now we're into collars that, from a flip of a switch, we can turn them up, turn them down, and the range on them and the size. And, there's so many tremendous progress that SportDOG has done in developing these collars over the course of these years and changing with the times. I think that's the biggest thing since 2007 when I joined them is the development of the collars and how they've done it and the size and the structures and the intensity levels. Because SportDOG, in my opinion, is the only one I know that you can change the intensity on the collar, but also on the transmitter, which is huge because no professional dog trainer or amateur trainer wants to apply any more pressure to a dog than has to be. That's not fun training, but you do have those dogs out there that are just stubborn. That's just the best way to put it. Stubborn.
Yeah, that's it. And I was, once again researching the SportDOG line, and they've really have got a wide choice of collar, basically to feed any specific need that you have, from the yard trainer, wetland hunter, sport hunter, upland hunter, for more the bird dog crowd, for the hound group. You were talking about running hounds earlier. Mm-hmm. They've got the whole hound hunter line as well. And one thing I like about the SportDOG stuff as well is it's very flexible with a number of dogs you can add to a particular receiver. Most of them are, you can run at least 2 to up to 6 dogs off of one receiver with different collars. So I think that's a real plus for the SportDOG line. Which collar do you use?
I use several different collars, and it's kind of like my grandfather also taught me that money is replaceable, but time is not. And so you talk about using, like I'll use on a water setup, I'll use 3 different collars. Okay, I'll have one going, one coming, one in the holding blind, and setting it up because we've got a setup that would normally take you 15 to 20 minutes. I'm running a dog out as one's going out for a mark, one coming back, and I've had them within 3 or 4 feet swimming by each other. And there's a lot of dogs that don't like each other on the truck, and you can hear them growl at each other as they go by, but that's I need to videotape that sometimes. Time saving situations that instead of being out there 12 hours, I can be out there 8 or 9 hours and doing something else. But, collar wise, probably my favorite collar is the SportDOG 2525, which is a hound collar. But I grew up in that time frame of that transmitter, fits my hand and fits my pocket the best. Okay. And I think it depends on, my hands aren't very big, so the buttons don't really matter on that 25. But if you're big hands, that 25-25 is an excellent collar. Plus, you can change the intensity level 1, 2, or 3 on the collar itself and still have the 0 to 8 or 9 on there to use it. So you can, if you have a lighter dog, it takes less pressure, you can turn it down to a 1, or if you got a dog that's a little stubborn, you can go to a 4 or 5. And after a while, the dial, I don't need to look at the dial. I know where I'm at on it, just using it that much. When we do have a chance, when the guys are doing yard work, I like the 1825s. They're size wise, they fit in your palm real well. It's good to use those when you're doing, the 5-leg patterns or your pile work, or, force, if you have to go to the collar with some force fetch, you can use them on the table and stuff like that. So that's an excellent collar. And then, there are other collars. I think it's a 1225 is good for, if you have a house dog or it's not your lab or you retired a dog, you can use that. You don't need any pressure, just kind of for size wise. But, any one of those 3 or 4 collars is an excellent, choice. It just depends on what you want. And sometimes you need that, there's a lot of collars or dogs that need the 25-25 and the rest of the dogs need the 18-25. So it just kind of goes back and forth with which dog you're working.
I got you. I think it should be pointed out to our listeners too that, we're talking about, Ecollars and there's an entire program, involved around collar conditioning and everything. You can't just throw a collar on a dog and expect results. I mean, people have to know this is a whole building process for a dog knows how to turn off the stimulation for correction and everything else. And it's not something you take lightly, for sure. Well,
no. And I mean, like when you go hunting, a lot of our guys do hunt. But when I get a chance to go, I like the 1825 because the size, it fits in your waders. I don't like putting around the neck because I usually got a whistle or a duck collar around my neck. But the 1825, the Campbell one's an excellent choice, or the black one, either one of them. It fits in that. It's very small and you got enough stuff. You got your gun, the shells, the bags. you got so much other stuff to worry about. But no, that the 1825 is an excellent choice.
That's another good point too. If a dog has been trained up with a collar throughout its progression of training, you need to use one in a hunting situation as well. I think a lot of folks will they'll get the dog back from the trainer and they don't continue to use the collar the way it's supposed to be used, and the dog realizes, hey, well, I can get away with a lot more than I could before. So I think that it's an important point to make that you've got to continue with the use of the collar in the field as well.
Well, it's a safety device, okay? Guy goes, I really don't like using the collar when I go hunting. Well, I had a dog several years ago that was a field champion that was collar conditioned, and I made this guy, I knew how he was. I made him promise that he'd put a collar on this dog. I said, you promise? He goes, I do. I said, because I'll tell you right now, you shoot a duck or a goose for this dog, he's going to go get it at any distance. And they were hunting him on Smithville Lake, and a bird sailed out, okay, into big water. And that dog would have drowned getting that goose or duck. I don't remember what it was. But they got him turned around and got him back in with the electric collar. They were blowing the come-in whistle and tapping him with the collar, and they saved his life. So, I mean, it's a deal where whether you're bird hunting or you're duck hunting, it's a safety feature. It's an extension of a choke chain or a lead. And you want to protect this animal, whether it be training, hunting, going for a walk. I mean, there's a lot of dogs we do obedience on that, well, I really don't know if I want the dog collar conditioned. Well, we're going to collar condition, so when you need it, it'll already be in there in your tools, in your toolbox. And so, yeah, it's a safety feature, and so many guys just don't understand why. I mean, it's safety. You got a dog you're bird hunting, and it's chasing a pheasant across the road, and you hear a truck coming. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to try and get the dog under control and save that animal's life. Is probably what it'll end up doing.
Exactly. And also, folks, in the SportDOG line, it's not just collars. You got a full line of bumpers, launcher electronics, check cords, healing sticks, pretty much one-stop shop for all your retriever training and bird dog, hound training needs right there at SportDOG. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the remote release system, we use it on the wingers, and we use them on the thunder launchers. And I've used other remote release systems. And the SportDOG remote release system is by far the best product out there on the market. It's easiest to work. It works every time. You just got to be careful if you're using wingers and it's compatible. You got to change some things. And then you get into your bark collars. I mean, as a dog trainer, we've got a lot of bark collars. But if you're living in town and your neighbors don't like it, I mean, the bark collar, put them on and it keeps peace in your neighborhood, let alone in your kennel. But yeah, the check cords, I love their check cords. They float, when you're working young puppies. And I mean, the bumpers, they've got a gazillion different kinds of bumpers as far as, 3 inches and 2 inches. And it makes things a lot easier to see their product lines. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that works. But the biggest thing I'd say with SportDOG is their customer service is probably the best there is. Okay, you got a problem, the collar, you don't understand how it works. I mean, when I started with them, I had troubles programming the collars together. You make a call and they go walk you through it and they're done. But yeah, if you've got a problem with any of their products, they'll go, hey, let's work on it together.
That's a really good point there, and that's great. Inevitably you're going to run into some things with collars sometimes that you just can't figure out. So you really need that support system to help you out to figure out what's going on.
Exactly, and like when we train a dog, I mean, I'm not saying you have to use a SportDOG collar. But it's very helpful for, like one of our clients, we had a retired dog come in and I told Jerry, he was going to duck hunt. And I said, well, she's on a 2 or 3 plug on a, 2 or 3 setting on your SportDOG. He goes, okay. Well, that helps him out because he doesn't know if she's on a 1 or an 8, but the same intensity level is going to be fairly consistent from one collar to the next.
Yeah, that's another thing. We're talking about evolution of collars. They're so much easier to use now. Like you were talking about the old collars where you had to change contact points and you had to change, to change intensity levels and everything. And now it's just at your fingertips.
Yeah, it's just quick right there. You can flip the switch up or low on one dog or another if you're trying to work an honoring situation. Or if you're hunting 2 dogs and you go, okay, I got red on this dog and blue on the other. And that's what we do. We use different electrical tape collars so we can see the collar. When it's flapping, what dog is wearing what color. But yeah, the intensity level you can change and the dogs. The thing with SportDOG is we've got into a society of which is the collars have remained the same with SportDOG. Okay. Some of these manufacturers have taken pressure of lowering the intensity level on their collars because of peer pressure. And SportDOG is held true to form is, we're going to leave them alone. You can turn the collar down. That's what I was always taught. You can start low, you can always go up, but you can't go back down. Okay. And that's the thing is some of these dogs, and we've all got them, that are just stubborn. They need a little more attrition to get over that hump. And once you're over the hump, then everything's fine. But if you don't have enough hump, I guess you'd say, you're never going to get over the hump, and it's going to take longer to train that dog or get a correction on that dog.
This has been great, Lyle. I mean, very informative for our listeners, talking about collars and then retrievers in general. And we really thank you for being on the DU podcast with us. Well,
thanks for having us. And like I say, anytime you guys need something, you guys holler at us, and we'll sure help, any of the listeners that listen to the podcast and SportDOG. And we're always out there available. I mean, that's what a lot of people don't understand is, they can pick up the phone and they'll call me, and I don't know everything, but it's a learning situation. Training questions for me is, hey, I don't know the answer to this, but let's go find out. And I made a comment the other day that all my mentors have left me. And so I want to teach my guys what I've been taught, or teach someone else that to help them get along down the road or make their dogs better. And that, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, whether it be hunting, having a good time with friends and family, or training, is we want to make the dogs better.
Yeah, very good. That's everybody's goal. And along those lines, we'd like to thank SportDOG for their support of Ducks Unlimited. And not just Ducks Unlimited, but all the conservation organizations that they're involved with. They're really believers in giving back to the resource, and we're very thankful for that. So once again, folks, thanks for listening to the Ducks Unlimited podcast and for supporting wetlands and waterfowl conservation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the DU Podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit www.ducks.org/DU podcast for resources based on today's topics, as well as access to more episodes. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks. Stay tuned to the Ducks. Stay tuned to the Ducks.